Good evening, everyone out there. We weren't gonna go live tonight, but we decided we are considering the situation that happened with Bill's defensive tackle in last year's first round pick. And Oliver, I have my guys with me as normal. Fred Kilmartin
How's it going, everybody?
and Clayton Garrett with me.
How's it going, everybody? Wish we could be back under some better circumstances.
Yes. So I mean, we're gonna break this whole situation down from beginning to end. Like I said, obviously we don't have all details. We're not detectives. We're not saying what he did. We're just reading what we have in front of us, same as you. And we're gonna talk about what's the possibilities and what's gonna happen next, possibly with Ed Oliver, with maybe a suspension or whatever the case may be. But obviously, this morning we woke up and we heard the news that every GM, every fan pretty much fears, especially during the offseason, that one of our key players, and not even just a key player, but any player on your team was arrested. So around 9 o'clock last night, Ed Oliver was arrested. He was pulled over on State Highway 242 in Montgomery County, Texas, not that far away from his hometown of Houston. He had an open beer container between his legs, was determined to be impaired after a field sobriety test. The officer who made the test noted that Oliver may have been impaired by something other than alcohol, and police discovered a pistol in Oliver's vehicle. No drugs were found. The cops were tipped off by a 911 call. So, I mean, guys, what are we feeling about this situation here with Ed Oliver? Fred?
I think the most important thing is that we maintain perspective of this. Is that we don't know all the facts, and we just understand, be empathetic, be sympathetic of it. He's a young guy. He makes mistakes. We're all human, whether you're a professional athlete or a regular human being like any of us. We all have made mistakes, maybe not to the significance of a DWI and an unpermitted pistol carry or what have you, but he is a human being. He made a mistake, and it happens. We've seen it happen with Bills players in the past. There's no need to overreact about this and complain on social media that he's the next Marcel Darius or he's going to be traded to wherever. I don't think that's the case at all. He's a young player going through his first full offseason in which has been cut to shreds due to the coronavirus. And, stuff like this happens throughout the league, as we've seen this week.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at it. This is a 22-year-old kid. He's still young. He's just got out of college last year, and, he's an NFL football player. I understand that. But the thing is that he's young. He's going to make a mistake. But I think the way that you look at Ed Oliver, and I think the character of this player is that he will learn from this. I think he's going to take the next step. I know the team probably going to reach out to him because, he's a young player. So, you're going to have your veterans reach out to him. That's all he needs. Someone to talk to him, set him in the guide, just let him know that, hey, you made a mistake, and just move on with it. That's all it is. I mean, there's other things going on in the world that this kid could have been doing. He wasn't out robbing anybody. He wasn't out hurting anybody. He's out riding his dune buggy and had a couple beers. He got stopped. You don't even know the situation. You don't know what his blood level, alcohol level was until we see all that. We don't really know.
Do you guys hold on a second before we move on? I want to get a question out there because Fred alluded to a veteran for him to lean on, and I don't. Do either of you guys have a player of that variety in mind? Like specifically on the football team?
On this football team, I think you have a community on this football team to do that. Yeah. And in reality, I feel like you have a Leslie Frazier, who's been in this league, like I said, been around this league forever. You have a Sean McDermott, you have a Brandon Beane. I think that the culture of this team and the fact that we continually preach culture with this franchise in general shows that, hey, this should be you should be able to withhold this. You just went through something similar to this, and actually probably on a worse level, in my opinion, with Zay Jones. So I think the culture as a whole in Buffalo is one that he can lean on for support. And like I said, I'll get into what I really think about this a little bit later in the show. But I think that you have it already at home.
Right. Okay. The reason I ask that is because there's a player along the defensive line that also lives in the state of Texas near Houston, and Jerry Hughes, who dealt with a similar incident when he was new to Buffalo with that drag racing incident. I believe it was in the offseason of 2014 and what have you. But that wouldn't be surprising to me. But I entirely agree with the point of the culture of the locker room, the the leadership, the pyramid of leaders in that locker room, and how the whole team has just been assembled as it's a one team. It's a one team. It's not individuals who are out there for themselves. It's a team that's out there to play for each other. So I agree that he has a great support system in Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, you look at just the culture alone. You look at Sean McDermott. He's been around. I'm sure he's dealt with situations like this in the past, but never as a head coach. I'm sure he had a couple defensive players that might have gotten in trouble. So I think they're going to handle this. We always talk about how this organization keeps everything in-house, and I think this is something that they're going to want to do as well. I think they're going to help the kid out a little bit, give him the right guidance and everything. But the way this team is built, like you say, I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah. So, I mean, I want to read a couple things off here and give some people's perspective on the Texas laws, because obviously we know gun laws are different all around the country. And I know that was a big question that we saw in a lot of our posts today. What about the gun laws in Texas? And I'll read something in this, and you'll see it on your screen here. Texas is a shall issue state with concealed weapons permits issued at the state level by the Department of Public Safety. There is no permit, background check, or firearms registration required when buying a handgun from a private individual. Now, this is the open carry rule, and this is what Ed Oliver was charged with, and I'll explain why he was charged. Open carry is only legal with a Texas license to carry or a sealed carry license permit from the state of reciprocity, provided the handgun is in a shoulder or belt holster. The minimum age is 21 years old or 18 years old for active military duty. Now, the problem that came into play with Ed Oliver in this entire situation is that in Texas, you can open carry, but if you're under the influence, you are then charged with a misdemeanor. And luckily for Ed in this case, there's a lot of state representatives in Texas at this point in time that's trying to get this law bumped to a felony. So, I mean, what are we thinking about the gun charge? And then we'll get to the under the influence part.
Well, when you talk about just everything surrounding it, you're talking about an individual who may be under the influence of drugs as well as alcohol in a vehicle with a firearm. And just the basis around that, it's an unsafe situation. And obviously he kind of lucks out in a way that it's not a felony to this point. It's just a misdemeanor in that state. And, when we're talking about the suspension that he's inevitably going to face this season, that gun charge is what could potentially bump it up to 4 games rather than just 2 for the DWI. So what happens in court could potentially have could be in play with what we find out will be the future for him playing for the football team in the first month of the season.
I mean, I think you got to look at it. I mean, he does have 2 misdemeanors, but I think the gun charge is more. I think that stands out a little bit more than the actual DWI itself. So, I mean, hopefully he can get one of those charges dropped. And if he does, he may even get all of it dropped. You don't know. If he definitely needs to get a lawyer involved to find out what his rights are. But going forward, I think that gun charge is what stands out over the DWI.
Right. I think luckily, and this is going to be the problem with the NFL has been the judgment calls of them. They haven't found a level of consistency when coming up with these suspensions.
Right.
We can all agree on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
This has been one of the biggest problems. This is just a misdemeanor, technically. Now, I'm not downplaying it, but it's just a misdemeanor by the law. So, are we gonna? How bad are we gonna punish a guy for not even a guy, a 22-year-old kid? Let's just call it what it is. He's a kid. He should have made had better judgment. But once again,
Fitzpatrick
and we've all
never had a chance.
A lot of us have kids.
It's Ed Oliver.
And kids make
buries
mistakes.
Fitzpatrick, the
and I'm
ninth
going to get to
overall.
Ed Oliver's character a little bit later, and why I don't think this is going to be a problem going forward. But that's what he is. He's a kid. All right? He has a whole lot of money, but it doesn't change the fact that his age doesn't change his level of maturity. How bad are we going to punish this kid for a mistake? He wasn't hurting anybody. I don't think obviously driving under influence is dangerous to anybody. And you can hurt yourself or anyone else. Thank God they didn't. But what are our concerns with this?
I think the first thing that you're going to probably do is have him go to some meetings. I know that that's one thing that they do up here in New York is they make you go to those MAD meetings. And that's probably something that he will have to do. Just let him know. I mean, you didn't hurt anybody. Nobody was hurt. But,
Fitzpatrick never had a chance.
So maybe maybe he becomes an advocate for it. You don't know. I mean, because the guy is a good kid. He's clean cut. He's never had any issues prior to this. This is the first time he's ever been in trouble. And, I wouldn't punish the kid too much. I mean, I think he knows he was wrong. And I think this is something that he's going to learn from.
Well, if you think about the punishment aspect of this, you're talking about a guy who's going to be losing $81,000 per week to start the season. No matter no matter how many games he's suspended, he's going to be losing $81,000 of his contract, and he essentially null and void the last remaining guarantees of his rookie deal. And he's a 9th overall draft pick. He was a first-round draft pick, and they also have a 5th-year option on him when that time comes. So he lost himself a lot of money in this case and scenario. He lost himself game time. He's going to lose production because of this. You're talking about a player who's going to face, in my opinion, enough reprimandation because in the first place. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to say that the other scenarios are any kind of better cases, or if they're bettering the Bills in any way, shape, or form, because they're bad situations. And I'm talking about the other players who got in legal trouble this past week. But you're talking about a week in which you got in trouble with a DWI and a gun charge, where some dude just beat the hell out of somebody and some guy just robbed somebody with a weapon. So this one, when you talk about those other cases and throw Ed Oliver's case in there as well, I feel like that may be an opportunity for his case to kind of fly under the radar, if you will, and kind of maybe even along with their empathy of it and along with their sympathy, and to kind of give him more so of a slap on the wrist. I don't anticipate them to give him a slap on the wrist, but I don't anticipate them to lay the hammer of will down on him either.
So what are we expecting for a punishment then?
I'm expecting at least 2 games. At least 2 games, maximum of 4.
I was going to say 4 games. I think 4 games, and maybe he gets it knocked down, to probably 3. But here's the thing, though, that you got to look at. Because of this court procedures and everything and all the information that they're trying to put together, this might be something that comes up during the middle of the season where the NFL could say he's suspended for the next 3 games. Because you think about the season and preseason, it's just, 2 months away. There's no way that he's going to have these court proceedings done unless it's a quick one. But I don't see it, especially with the COVID and everything going on right now. So this is something that we might see him get suspended like the middle of the season or so.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I really didn't think about that. And you're right. This could be something that happens towards the middle of the season. Although I got a feeling that they're going to get this done because I believe Texas is opened. Mm-hmm. And obviously with him, he's going to have a high-powered attorney. Let's just be honest. This is the type of guys that these guys get as high-powered attorneys. They're going to push this thing through and make sure it's done. Whatever he has to do is going to be done. Like I said, now I want to talk about the driving under the influence part. I'm not an advocate for driving under influence. I don't even want to seem like I'm an advocate for it. But like I said, you have to bring his age into play here. He is 22 years old. He made a mistake. I don't want to punish the kid for the rest of his life for this. He could have potentially hurt somebody. And more importantly, he could have potentially hurt himself as well. I don't believe Ed Oliver is a character concern at all. I don't believe that the comparisons to Marcel Darius and what Darius went through is fair. I also don't think the comparisons to Zay Jones from last year are fair. Ed Oliver has shown nothing in his character to say that he's going to be a problem moving forward.
Right. And the thing with Marcel Darius is that Marcel was dealing with a lot of personal issues.
Correct.
He had some deaths in the family. He was away from his family. He's up in Western New York. I don't think he had that mentor, someone that he could lean on. But, he was a young kid as well. Just because he's a big guy, plays football, he's still a kid. He's still young. So he didn't have that. And he lost a lot of close people in his life. Probably the people that were mentoring him. So you can't really look at Ed Oliver and Marcel Darius as the same situation. 2 different situations.
The biggest thing about this whole situation at this point, and I agree with you, I'm not an advocate, I'm not defending driving under the influence in any way, shape, or form. But the biggest thing in this situation for Ed Oliver, and the most damning thing about his character, isn't the situation itself, but it's going to be how he responds. It's going to be how he responds when he gets back on the field after his suspension, or whenever it occurs, if it happens mid-season or if it happens in the first couple weeks. When he gets back on the field, when he goes to practice at St. John Fisher, assuming they have practice at St. John Fisher this year, when those things go on, it's about how he carries himself in the locker room, how he carries himself with his teammates, how he carries himself as a leader. Look at the situation and how he responded last year. He was the starter. He was having 65% of the snaps to start the season last year and essentially got replaced for Jordan Phillips. I understand that the snap counts were a little more even, But the first package of the game, it typically had Jordan Phillips out there at his position. And he didn't mope. He didn't complain. He didn't go out there and play soft-ass football like Zay Jones did when he got benched. He went out there and played his ass off and had a really good rookie season. That's an indicator to me that Ed Oliver, he has a solid character, and he's not a character concerned to that like you would a Marcel Darius or a Zay Jones.
I think the biggest thing is that you got to see how he's going to handle with the media, because you know the media is going to be all over this kid. That's going to be the big test for him, because he's going to feel comfortable in the locker room because it's a family atmosphere. But once you get that media, and you know they're going to be hounding him, especially if there's no other news going on except for this come training camp. So how he handles that is going to be a big test.
No, and going back to Marcel Darius, and I think this is the biggest difference between the teams that Marcel Darius played in and not only the locker room Marcel Darius is involved in. There's a huge difference here. The difference here with Ed Oliver than was Darius is that the fact, yes, Oliver is leaned on. He's a starter on this football team. He's a very important part. He was a very high draft pick. He's not as leaned on as heavily as I believe Marcel Darius was. I don't believe that the pressure is on Ed Oliver as it was Marcel Darius. Right. Marcel Darius was drafted as a savior to a defense, not necessarily a very important piece as Ed Oliver is. I think that the fact that the Bills are winning and are projected to be a winning team, that's going to help him out a bit, because when Marcel Darius was getting in trouble, this team was losing. So when one thing goes wrong and one thing's negative, everything's going to be negative. So I think, too, he has a culture around him. I think he has people to lean on, such as a Kyle Williams. Mud Dog brings up the point that Kyle Williams was still around the team last year. And that he worked with Ed in the offseason. Maybe that's the guy you could call. But that's not even the main guy I would call. There was a guy who I think is embedded to this franchise that has gone through this case similar times. Bruce Smith. Yep. Now, if people aren't aware, Bruce Smith has had a DUI, 3 DUIs in the last 12 years. 1997, 2003, and 2009. Bruce, we've seen him help out with Myles Garrett. We've seen him help out with Von Miller. Now it's time, in my opinion, to have Bruce come home and help out with this kid. And like I said, I'm not saying Ed Oliver needs the mentorship. I'm not saying he's a lost kid or anything like that. But sometimes you just need someone that's been in your shoes 100%, and Bruce has been in those shoes. He's been in that field. He's been in that locker room. He's been in this position 3 times, and maybe can direct him like, hey, kid, go about it like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're talking about one of the greatest pass rushers of all time that coincidentally plays on the same team, that was drafted by the same team, that coincidentally went from, I wouldn't say small town Virginia, but very different from Buffalo, Virginia, compared to very different from Buffalo, Texas to Buffalo. There are players in the league that need the guidance, that don't know really how to handle the spotlight sometimes. And that's why I touched on it earlier, that this is Ed Oliver's first offseason, and they're not going about it in the typical manner than they would. In Ed Oliver, I'm not saying I agree with you. It's not a necessity that he needs the guidance of one of the best players of all time. It's not a necessity by any means, but it would be definitely it would be a great addition to Ed Oliver's psyche and his morale.
I think Bruce probably would reach out to him, to be honest with you, and give the kid some guidance. I mean, like you said, he did it with Von Miller. He did it with Myles Garrett. So I can see Bruce doing that. And the kid just needs, it's not even so much as guidance. He just needs to know that there's somebody there for him, that someone's there to listen to him. That's what he needs.
Right. I think he just needs that good PR person. Just make sure his organization will handle this correctly. And like I said, obviously with everything going with COVID-19, this may get pushed under the rug somewhat media-wise. So that, not that COVID's a benefit, that may be a benefit to him personally, where it could kind of take the pressure off of him. But like I said, as fans, what we can't do is we can't do what we did to Marcel Darius. We can't do what we did to Stephon Gilmore, though Stephon Gilmore never got into trouble. We can't jump on this kid and push him out the freaking door. No. Because I'll be honest, and I'll stand by this 100%. Here in Buffalo, we have some of the greatest fans, if not the greatest fan base in all of the NFL. But at times, we can be really brutal. And we can push people out the door. I think this guy's a high character kid. I think he's a high character individual. Let me ask you a question. I've been on the road with musicians that get paid a lot of money. I've been on the road with football players that get paid a lot of money. And I see that there's a huge difference in the lifestyle. This is a 22-year-old kid who likes to ride horses, hunt, and spend time with family. Mm-hmm. So how much as a fan base are we going to personally butcher this kid?
We shouldn't. We shouldn't at all. If anything, we should be there for the kid and give him confidence that, it's all right. You made a mistake. Okay? People make mistakes every day. You can't crucify the kid for it.
It's unacceptable, in my opinion, that some fans lash out in the way that they do when things like this arise. Because, you talk about it like this is the first time that Ed Oliver has an example, and he is the example that he can see. I guarantee you he wasn't following the Zay Jones incident very closely. He probably wasn't he was on the team for Terrell Dotson's situation, but that's his first mini camp. That's his first training camp. That probably wasn't the pressing thing on his mind. This is the first time that he is experiencing somebody who's going to have to face consequences for their actions in this locker room. He is the example. And as a fan base, I agree. People are sometimes far too harsh on these players. And I think in this instance, people are falling back into their own ways, or their old ways, of when the team was surrounded by nothing but negativity, as Jeremy alluded to. This team, it's anything but that nowadays. There's nothing but positivity surrounding this football team. And just because there's nothing else to talk about on a Sunday morning doesn't mean you should be talking about last year's first-round pick, a potential Pro Bowler next season, a player who I think is going to have a breakout season, suspended or not, getting traded, cut, or what have you. There's no reason to be talking about any kind of irrational thing about that. Did he make a dumbass choice? Yeah. But I guarantee you, everybody watching this has made a dumbass choice. Everybody on this screen has made a dumbass choice. It happens. Mm-hmm. Stuff happens. Whether you're an NFL player, whether you're in the NBA, or whether you're just a typical guy. Stuff happens. And, hey, you got to be professional about it. And these guys are going to be professional about it. But Bills Mafia cannot push this guy out the door. I guarantee you he's going to be something special.
And here's the thing we have talked about it, is that Bills fans do not realize that this is not the same Buffalo Bills that we've known in the past. In the past, when something happens, it was because the locker room was full of individuals. Yeah. This is not. The culture up here is family. They're united as one. Sean McDermott probably is going to be the one that really takes this kid and helps him, to be honest with you. It's just the way that Sean McDermott seems, and we've talked to Sean, and it seems like that he's a person that you want to talk to when you have a problem, and I think this is perfect for him. This is the culture that he's built up in Buffalo, and this is for stuff like this. I think that we're going to be fine with Ed Oliver, and I think, we've been saying, he's going to use this to learn, and I don't think he'll make the mistake again.
I want to hear what you have to say, Jeremy, but I want to feed off that Sean McDermott point real quick, because this is an opportunity for Sean McDermott to set an example in the locker room of what happens when stars fall under unfortunate circumstances. Mm-hmm. This is a great opportunity to, you're either going to be the dictator, which I don't think Sean McDermott is. People can argue amongst themselves what the correct decision is, what the correct actions are to be taken in this case and scenario. But you can either be the dictator and you can make a ruling example of him, or you can show him we're a family. It's not just him going through this, it's all of us going through this. And I believe that's the path that Sean McDermott and his coaching staff is going to take with this situation.
Right. And I was just saying, I love this kid. I think he's a good kid. Like I said, he's 22 years old. He's a kid who likes to stay at home. He doesn't go out to these nightclubs. He's not partying in these strip clubs. You don't see it. This guy's fishing. He's hunting. He's riding horses. He's working on his dad's farm. He's a family guy, and I think too, besides his Bills family, now's the time he's going to go back and lean on his actual family at home. And they're a strong bunch. If you actually follow Ed Oliver, you'll see that the Oliver clan is a strong bunch, and I think that's going to be his first step. As far as welcoming him back into this locker room, the NFL is going to punish him. Okay, there's no doubt about that. The NFL is going to punish him. I don't think Buffalo has to do anything to punish him at this point. I think if this kid is who we think he is, he's going to punish himself. And I think he's going to get back on that damn farm. He's going to work his ass off these next couple of weeks. He's going to be in the best shape of his life, and he'll probably be suspended. And when he hits that field, whatever week that may be, maybe it was week 2, week 3, week 4, or maybe it's no weeks. He's going to come back, and he's going to be one hell of a football player. And that's Ed Oliver I think we're going to get. I see no character issues from the kid. But before we're going to start taking some comments and some questions. But before we do, this week we actually just picked up a brand new sponsor here at the Cold Front Report. We wanted to let you guys know who they are. So we're now sponsored by Short Bills. Bills, Sabres, Breaks, and Razzles giveaways. So make sure you head over to the Short Bills Facebook group for your chance to win autographed memorabilia from all Bills players, both past and present. They just finished up some private signings with Deion Dawkins, Jordan Porter, and Micah Hyde, and Andre Reed, to name a few. You can win jerseys, helmets, and more, all while raising money for the Buffalo Bills Players Foundations. Any more questions in the group, please feel free to message an admin. And as you can see, Fred Martin has the Short Bills shirt on him. So make sure you guys get over to Shorty Bills, Breaks, and Razzles and win you some stuff while we're all sitting at home. And like, get your man caves and woman caves. We never hear about the women caves. Get the women caves. It's nice as well. So let's start taking some questions here from in comments from a couple of our viewers here. AJ Cherry says, Bean and McDermott will take care of his ass. It's all good. I agree with you. Anthony Bomasudo says, in Texas is different. I love this guy. He will respond with professionalism because of our organization. Gary Rupert says, rules got harder now, especially with all these players doing stuff every offseason. And right, and we alluded to the point earlier, there's been like 4 arrests this week. And we actually have a weird stat that this offseason, every New York team has had a first-round pick from 2019 arrested. DeAndre Baker and New York Giants, who he may never hit a football field again. So we should be thankful, that this wasn't even worse. Quinnen Williams, who got caught with the gun charge in New York, and now Ed Oliver. So and I just Cody Lattimore yesterday. So this is something that's going around. This is not something that's new.
These guys need football.
Yeah.
They need football. They got too much time on their hands.
I agree. Clayton?
I mean, you're talking about this offseason and Ed Oliver and these players who are going through more of a different offseason than they ever will. And rookies, well, I mean, you can't call them rookies anymore. They're now second-year pros, but going into their first professional offseason. It's not the college offseason or what have you. But with the college point, you're talking about Oliver and his character, the dude who's always stayed home. Like, you guys have any idea how many Power 5 offers that Ed Oliver had? He could have gone to Alabama. He could have gone to LSU. Mm-hmm. He could have gone to virtually any school that he wanted to in the country. But he opted to stay in Houston, a smaller school with a smaller impact where he wouldn't get as many professional eyes on him. And he opted to stay home. And I tend to agree with Jeremy's point from earlier that, I think this is only going to benefit him.
Okay. So we're going to go to the last couple minutes of our show because we're not going to take up all your night. We have to talk about how this affects the schedule. So you guys give me how many games you think he will be suspended for, and we can go over the schedule of how this affects it and what it does to the roster. Fred, I'm coming to you first.
I think that he's going to probably get 4 games, but I think he's going to probably get it knocked down to 3. So I can see him missing 3 games.
Which would be the Jets, the Dolphins, and the Rams.
Yes.
How does this affect the lineup, in your opinion?
I mean, now you got to look and see who you got on the roster. But the good news is that Harrison Phillips is healthy again, so you might not miss a beat sliding him in there. And then you got Addison, and then you got Butler. And
Quentin Jefferson.
Jefferson, I'm sorry. Yeah, so our rotation will still be the 5 guys will still be rotating through with 5 of them. So I don't think you're going to miss a beat. And if any indication as Harrison Phillips on how he's doing, he's been working his butt off. He's probably going to be a beast anyway, so you might not miss that. You might just have less rotation, but I don't think it's going to affect based on who we're playing. Miami, the Jets, and then the Rams. I think we can still get enough pressure on those quarterbacks that we're not going to miss Ed Oliver.
Right, Clayton, what you got? Man?
I tend to agree with the 3-game point and the games that. What's the 4th week again? That's Vegas, right?
It's Vegas. Yep.
Okay, so it's Vegas, and you're talking about. The first 3 teams, you have a new offensive line in place, essentially in New York. You have a young offensive line in Miami, and you have going up against a quarterback in which your secondary is going to benefit you more so than your defensive line. And I tend to agree with the point that, hey, this is the deepest defensive tackle room in football. I don't think enough people are talking about it with or without Ed Oliver in the first handful of weeks. So the first couple of weeks, it is still the deepest defensive tackle room in football. And when we're talking about interior defensive linemen playing that 3 technique position, you could argue that Quentin Jefferson played it better than Ed Oliver on a play-to-play basis last season. So whether this is going to impact the Bills in the beginning of the season, I'm not going to guarantee that it will. I'm not going to guarantee that it won't. But I can tell you right now that the depth that they built along the interior of that defensive line will buy them well for however long Ed Oliver is suspended for.
No, I agree. And I think Quentin Jefferson is the big name for me. That was the versatility sign that we needed. And, I mean, I knocked the Vernon Butler signing. And, end of the day now, thank the heavens. Thank the heavens. I mean, we're going to lose this guy for a couple of games. And I think our defense at this point, I think they were fine. I think we have people that's going to step in. Now, mind you, do I think any of these guys can do what Ed Oliver can do? No, I really don't. I'm just being honest. I think he's a dynamic player that you're definitely going to miss. But you have comparable and very good football players behind him to make this thing work the first 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. And I don't think there's any excuses, regardless, with Ed or without Ed. There's no excuses. This team is championship caliber, and the motto is find a way. So, hey, that's it. You got to find a way. So let's take a couple more comments here. Singh Saran says, "What's good, Bills Mafia? Hope everyone is safe." Justin Gilmore says, "Ed will be fine. This is a dumb mistake. Organization will handle it and probably League 2. No worries, no issues. At least the arrests weren't like the rest of the guys arrested." I gotta agree with that. Right. And Cody Wells says, last year, these rookies have been busy getting ready for the combine, pro days, and draft. Ton of free times this year. I think he's going off your point, Fred, as far as these guys need football. And there was one more comment. "Fred, I love your post. Good to put a face to the name. Smile, Fred."
Thank you.
All right. So, guys, final thoughts on this. Fred?
I just think that Bills Mafia, you just got to let this thing play out. Give the kid the benefit of the doubt. He made a mistake. He's going to move on. We just got to move on and get focused and try to get an NFL season in.
Like I said at the beginning, or not at the beginning, but in an earlier point, is the biggest thing now is how Ed Oliver responds. I can guarantee you that not only Bruce Smith, but plenty of those other players on those Super Bowl teams, on those AFC championship teams that went back to back to back to back, that there were players that got caught in Buffalo with open containers in their car. I guarantee you it happened. I guarantee you didn't hear about it because there was no such thing as Facebook. There was no such thing as YouTube. There was no such thing as an iPhone. Nothing. There was nothing. I guarantee you these things have happened in the past, and I guarantee you there are people within the Bills circles that can give this young, dynamic football player some of the best advice that he has received since he stepped foot in one Bills drive.
Right. And I'll get one more comment. I'll get my final thoughts. My man Gary Rupert says, regardless, it won't affect our defense that much. Do his 3-4 weeks in a big season, get it over with. That's right. Got to move forward. Find a way. No, I just want to make sure that we support this kid. That's my biggest thing. And I keep using the terminology kid for a reason. I know he's 22. I know he's of age. I know by age he's a grown man. But I really want us to all go back and think about where we were, what we were doing at 22. You have two choices in life when you get put in the back of a police car. At that very moment, you cannot care and possibly end up back in the back of that police car again. Or two, you could let this be the best lesson in life to you. Because sometimes our best life lessons comes at the worst times and with the hardest punishment. And I'm going to give a little insight to my life. Because I think Ed Oliver he's a competitor and he likes playing this game of football. You can see that. And when I don't know how old I was, I may have been around 9 or 10. I did something. I don't even know what I did. But I remember my mother not letting me play 2 or 3 games of my baseball season. And then it just seemed like I didn't want to play baseball. But now at 33 years old, it was probably one of the biggest life lessons for me ever. Because when you have something take away from you that you work so hard for, that you care and that you love so much, you learn from it.
Yep. You
learn from it. So I don't want to see us run this kid out of town. Let's not compare him to Marcel Darius. Give him a chance. He made a mistake. But it's so many things that he could be doing a lot worse. Now, mind you, I want him to be more careful. And I've said this on this show before about him riding ATVs and horses. I've said it before. It scares me. It does. It truly scares me. But he's a good kid. Ed Oliver is a really good dude. And he comes from a family with high character, very tight bonded group. And I think he'll learn from this, and I think he'll respond. And Let's just get through this, help him get through this, to support him. Let's not run him out of town. That's all I ask for. But hey, guys, thank you guys for joining me tonight. Great show. Thank all you guys for watching. We just hit 10,000 followers this past week. So, I mean, we can't thank you guys enough. Make sure you're getting over to Shorty McBill's Breaks and Razzles following. Make sure you're also getting over to Cold Socks. Dan Gambino's getting some new gear out there. Getting to the t-shirt game. I see you, Dan. And let's honestly stay safe, stay home if it's possible. I know everything's reopening, but stay home as much as possible. And we want to see you guys join us at a later time. And our prayers go out to you and your families to stay safe in this trying time. So once again, thank all you guys for always tuning in. We love Cold Front Nation, as we dub it. And we'll catch you guys next time on a better note, though.